Hello, I'm Brian Downs. This is A Republic If You Can Keep It. Welcome back to the channel. It is July 13th, 2025, just about 3:45 in the afternoon here in Orlando, Florida, and we're going to talk about the Epstein files and the lesson they offer us in mob psychology. So, Jeffrey Epstein, of course, was involved in the sex trafficking of teenage girls. He abused many of these girls himself. He was a wealthy man and he had the resources to do this. He had a private island. He had Ghislaine Maxwell helping to procure the girls. He incentivized the girls by paying them. He was arrested during the first Trump presidency. He was investigated during the first Trump presidency. He was arrested during the first Trump presidency. He kills himself in prison. Yes, kills himself. Then his co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, is tried, convicted of being involved in a sex trafficking ring, and is in prison today. The first Trump administration ends. It is known to the whole wide world that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were good friends for 10 years and more. That Donald Trump often rode on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane and had often visited Epstein's parties and so forth. The Biden administration comes and goes. The Justice Department under Biden, which was, of course, a largely independent branch of government dedicated to the blind and impartial pursuit of justice, did not use whatever information that had been gathered in the Epstein investigation to launch any other prosecutions of any other individuals. And yet, the MAGA crowd is convinced that there's a client list of Jeffrey Epstein's, that there's a list of powerful and influential people who went to Jeffrey Epstein in order to have encounters with these girls that he was trafficking. Okay, if that were true, why didn't the first Trump administration's Justice Department pursue prosecutions? Why didn't Biden's Justice Department pursue prosecutions? But the MAGA crowd says, no, there's a list, and of course the list is full of Democrats in this fantasy. Then Trump gets reelected. Pam Bondi is his attorney general. She is a Trump bootlicker who doesn't understand how justice works. She thinks that she is Trump's personal attack dog, and Trump selected her because she's willing to think that. 6 months go by while Camp Run Amok, the Trump administration, are stoking these flames. Oh yes, the Epstein files, all the guilty Democrats are in the Epstein files. It apparently doesn't occur to MAGA that maybe Jeffrey Epstein's BFF, Donnie J, is in those files. Anyway, Camp Run Amok promises to release the files, and the MAGA faithful eat it up. Dan Bongino, a podcaster who was then made deputy director of the FBI, had been banging on about this for years. Kash Patel, now director of the FBI under Camp Run Amok, had been going on about this for years. They're going to release them. The files. First of all, let's talk about files. Of course, the investigation into Epstein would have produced reams of information. It doesn't necessarily produce actionable information. Of course, it's going to show that Epstein knew a lot of people. He was a socialite. He threw parties. He was a businessman. That someone happened to know Jeffrey Epstein or happened to visit his island does not prove that that person was involved in sex trafficking. We might use the example of the notorious American serial killer John Wayne Gacy, who was thought of in his community as a nice guy who liked to throw some hot dogs on the grill and have some friends over. I believe he worked as a contractor, gets you a good job, a good price on your bathroom remodel. Just because someone visited the killer, John Wayne Gacy, and had a beer in the backyard does not mean that that person knew about how many bodies were in the basement. So the point is that the Epstein investigation, of course, produced a lot of information and included a lot of names of people who knew Epstein or did business with him. That does not mean that those people are guilty of crimes. So, are there files? Is there information produced by the investigation? Certainly. That doesn't mean that that information proves anyone's guilt. That said, if it's likely to prove anyone's guilt, it's likely to prove Donald Trump's guilt, because he and Epstein were very close friends, not casual acquaintances, very close friends for more than a decade, and Donald Trump has a long history of sexual misconduct. See the Eugene Carroll case, see the Stormy Daniels affair, see the various side chicks and girlfriends and ex-wives. Anyway, MAGA is sure that the Epstein files are full of damning information, except Trump's first administration did not move on this alleged information. Biden's administration didn't move on it. Trump's second administration didn't move on it for 6 months. Then, of course, Trump has this famous falling out with his biggest donor, Elon Musk, who in the end felt that he did not get as much power as he thought he was buying with his multi-million-dollar donations to Trump's second presidential campaign. And Elon Musk announces publicly that Trump is in the Epstein files. Yes, of course he is. That's not a surprise to anybody. But it causes some fuss in the MAGA camp. At the very least, Trump and Epstein certainly knew each other and had a social relationship for many years. Therefore, Trump is going to appear in the information produced by the investigation. Doesn't necessarily prove that Trump is a criminal in this particular matter. So, now MAGA's in a tizzy. Now they're going to release the Epstein files. Pam Bondi says, yes, the list is on my desk. I'm reviewing it. What's to review? The Justice Department has had this information for years. What are you going to review? What has not been seen already? Anyway, the official announcement is there is no list. There is no one else to prosecute. Nothing to see here. Go home. And now, Alex Jones is weeping in his car. The MAGA faithful are heartbroken, guts torn out, as Mr. Jones said, I'm going to go throw up. Because they've discovered, much to their shock and surprise, that Donald Trump can't be trusted. Either there was a pile of damning evidence in those files, as Camp Runamuck tried to imply for years when they weren't showing you the files, and that evidence has now been destroyed, or there was no damning evidence in those files. The files had nothing interesting to say, except Epstein, of course, was guilty of sex trafficking himself. He committed suicide in prison, case closed. By the way, some people are going to say, well, if there's no client list, then why is Maxwell in prison? Because Ghislaine Maxwell was tried for being Epstein's accomplice. She procured these girls. She made the wheels turn in this whole operation for Epstein's own gratification. That's why. No one in the Maxwell case said that Ghislaine Maxwell has all these names of all these other guilty parties who no one has bothered to prosecute in the meantime. So, here's the MAGA camp left saying, oh, no, we thought every Democrat in the world was on the Epstein list. Turns out there is no Epstein list, or at least that's what Camp Runamuck is claiming now. Gosh. The only possible conclusion is that in some very significant way, Camp Runamuck has been lying the whole time, or is just lying now. And people say, what? Donald Trump? The 36 times convicted felon? The man guilty of who knows how many civil frauds? The pathological liar and former reality television star? Can't be trusted? No. No, he can't.